There is a type of person you have encountered at least once in your life. Maybe they were your boss, maybe a rival, maybe someone you once underestimated. You've seen them insulted in public, and they said nothing. You've seen them challenged, disrespected, talked over, dismissed, and they didn't flinch. Not once. No raised voice, no trembling jaw, no desperate justification, just silence. And somehow, that silence filled the entire room. You felt it. Everyone felt it. The person who was screaming suddenly looked small. The person who said nothing suddenly looked enormous. What do these people know that you don't? What is the secret behind that stillness? Because it isn't weakness, it isn't fear, it isn't confusion, it is strategy. It is the most dangerous form of psychological power a human being can wield, the power to choose not to react. Most people believe that a loud, fierce response signals strength, that if someone disrespects you, you must fire back, immediately, aggressively, publicly. They've been taught that silence means you have nothing to say, that stillness means you've lost. They are wrong. And that misunderstanding? That is the exact trap that keeps ordinary people ordinary and elevates the strategic few above the crowd. Today, we are going to give you 7 psychological tactics that transform dead silence into your most powerful weapon. 7 situations where saying nothing communicates everything. 7 moments where your non-reaction becomes an act of dominance so precise, so controlled, that the person who came to diminish you ends up diminishing themselves. Before we go any further, drop this in the comments right now. My silence is not weakness, it is my weapon. Let that declaration set the tone for everything that follows. Niccolo Machiavelli, the man governments feared and scholars still haven't fully decoded, wrote something that most people skim past without understanding its full depth. He observed that the prince who reacts to every slight, every provocation, every whisper of opposition, that prince is already being controlled. His power is not his own. It belongs to whoever holds the trigger. The moment your enemy knows what makes you react, they own a piece of you. Sun Tzu echoed this truth from a different battlefield. He taught that the supreme general does not display his emotions to the enemy, because emotion is intelligence. It tells your opponent where you are vulnerable, what you value, what you fear. To show your reaction is to hand your enemy a map of your interior. And Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, built an entire law around this principle. Do not commit to anyone. Maintain independence. The moment you react, you have committed, and commitment can be exploited. And Baltasar Gracián, the 17th century Spanish Jesuit, whose words Napoleon studied obsessively, perhaps said it most precisely: never act when moved by passion. Those who attack you want to see you disturbed. Deny them that satisfaction, and you deny them their power. 7 tactics, 7 situations, 1 unbreakable truth. The calm person always wins. Let's begin. Picture this. You're in a room full of colleagues, peers, or acquaintances, and someone takes a shot at you. Maybe they mock your idea. Maybe they make a joke at your expense. Maybe they correct you in the most condescending tone imaginable, making sure everyone is watching. The humiliation is public, the audience is real, and every eye in the room drifts to you to see how you'll respond. Every nerve in your body ignites, your face flushes, your jaw tightens. Your mind races through 100 different responses, each one's sharper and more cutting than the last. The primal instinct screams, defend yourself, hit back, right now, in front of everyone. Here is what your attacker is counting on. The public humiliation was never about the joke. It was never about correcting you. It was a test, a probe designed to locate your emotional trigger and pull it. If you fire back immediately, emotionally, defensively, loudly, you prove to the entire room that the trigger works. You validate their power over you. You make the moment about your reaction rather than their behavior. The audience stops seeing someone who was wronged. They start seeing someone who lost control. You just handed your attacker exactly what they came for. The counter move is this: the sovereign pause. You let the comment land in complete silence. You hold eye contact, calm, unhurried, almost curious, as if you are observing something mildly interesting from a great psychological distance. You take your time. You breathe. And then, if you respond at all, you do so slowly, quietly, with the measured tone of someone who was never threatened to begin with. Because here is the visual truth of this moment. The person who laughed loudly looks reactive. The person who stood still looks in command. The room doesn't remember the insult. They remember who controlled the room. Gracián was right. You denied them their satisfaction. And in doing so, you took everything. You find out that someone has been talking, not to your face, never to your face, but behind closed doors, in corridors, in private messages. They've rewritten the story of who you are, distorted your intentions, painted you as incompetent, dishonest, unstable, whatever serves their agenda most conveniently. And the worst part? People are listening. The burning impulse is to go public, to correct the record, to hunt down every ear that heard the lie and flood it with your truth. You want to confront the source directly, loudly, and with evidence. You want people to know you know. You want to be believed. And here is the profound strategic mistake hiding inside that impulse. The moment you begin frantically defending yourself against a rumor, you transform a whisper into a headline. You legitimize the lie by treating it as something worth fighting. You look desperate. You look reactive. And worst of all, to outside observers who don't know the details, your urgency itself becomes suspicious. People who are innocent, they begin to think, don't usually work this hard to prove it. The lie gains traction not because of what was said, but because of how violently you responded. The strategic response is this: controlled indifference. You do not chase the rumor. You do not publicly deny. You do not let your behavior shift 1 degree. You continue operating at your highest level, visibly, consistently, with total composure. Because rumors are fires, and your panic is oxygen. Remove the oxygen, and even the most vicious lie burns itself out. Robert Greene understood this. Never appear too hungry for vindication. It signals that you can be destabilized. The visual here is deliberate. While others scramble to watch your fire, you are already 3 moves ahead, building something they cannot touch. You know this person. They have an opinion about everything you do, and they've decided today is the day they challenge you directly. They poke at your beliefs, your choices, your record. They're not genuinely curious. They are not interested in dialogue. They want friction. They want the spectacle of you defending yourself to an audience that is now watching. The impulse here is ancient and deeply human. You want to win the argument. You have facts. You have evidence. You have lived experience that demolishes their position point by point. Why wouldn't you use it? Why wouldn't you set the record straight right here, right now, in front of everyone? Because the moment you enter their arena, you play by their rules. They have chosen the battlefield: emotion, noise, ego, performance. And that is a battlefield designed for them, not for you. Even if you win every logical point, you lose the psychological war. Because you showed up. Because you needed to win. Because your composure cracked enough to drag you into a fight you could have simply declined. And here is the darker truth. Provocateurs do not fear being beaten in debate. They fear being ignored. The counter move is strategic non-engagement. You do not argue. You do not sigh dramatically. You do not roll your eyes or clench your fists. You simply decline the invitation. A calm smile, a brief neutral acknowledgement. That's an interesting perspective. And then you redirect your attention elsewhere. The visual is precise. a matador stepping aside as the bull charges. The bull is powerful, enraged, committed to the attack, and the matador is holding nothing but stillness and winning entirely. Sun Tzu, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. You did the work, you built the thing, you solved the problem, carried the weight, and endured the process. And then, in the exact moment of recognition, someone else steps into the light. Maybe they present your idea as their own. Maybe they subtly reframe the narrative to center themselves. Maybe they simply accept praise without correction, knowing full well what they're doing. And the room applauds them. The rage that surfaces in this moment is not petty. It is legitimate. Every instinct tells you to speak up, right now, right here, and reclaim what is yours. You want to call it out, to correct the record loudly enough that no one in that room leaves with the wrong impression. But the public correction, especially when made with emotional heat, backfires with cruel precision. You look jealous. You look insecure. You transform a moment that should be about your work into a moment about your wounded ego. And the person who stole your credit? They now have a second victory. They made you look petty. The audience, who knew nothing of the theft, now associates your name not with the achievement, but with the scene you caused. The strategic move is quiet documentation and patient repositioning. In the immediate moment, you remain composed. You do not explode publicly. Instead, you ensure that over time, through your continued output, your expertise, your relationships, and your track record, the truth becomes undeniable. You speak to the right people privately. You ensure your paper trail is airtight. You let your body of work do the speaking that your outburst never could. And you remember Machiavelli's lesson. Never waste energy punishing in the heat of the moment. The cold hand of time, properly leveraged, is a far more precise instrument. The thief has one stolen moment. You have a career. The exclusion is rarely accidental. The meeting you weren't invited to. The conversation that stops when you enter the room. The group that forms around everyone but you, with just enough deliberateness that you know it is intentional. This is social exile as a power move, and it is designed to do one specific thing: make you feel small enough to beg for inclusion. The human need for belonging is one of the most primal forces in existence. Being excluded hurts at a neurological level. Studies have confirmed that social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. So the impulse to force your way back in, to ask why, to confront, to perform your worth, is not weakness. It is biology. But the trap is exquisitely designed. The people who excluded you want you to react. They want you to notice loudly, to chase, to plead, to perform desperation. Because your desperation confirms their power over you. It tells them that their opinion of you, their inclusion of you, is the thing you value most. And whoever controls what you value most controls you. The counter move is the most psychologically unsettling response you can give. Absolute indifference. Visible abundance. You do not chase. You do not ask. You do not let your body language shift even 1 degree toward insecurity. Instead, you become visibly, almost offensively fine. You build your own table. You invest in other rooms, other relationships, other opportunities. And paradoxically, the moment the excluded stop needing the room suddenly becomes very curious about them. Gracián knew it well. Be the one who is sought, never the one who seeks. This is a specific and calculated form of disrespect. The person who does this is not attacking you out of genuine conflict. They are using you as a prop, a comedic sacrifice on the altar of their own social performance. They need the group's laughter. They need to look dominant, clever, cool. And they've decided that your discomfort is the currency they'll spend to buy it. The instinct to retaliate is immediate and understandable, not just because you were disrespected, but because it was witnessed, because others laughed, because they played along. You want to dismantle the performance. You want to make the comedian into the punchline. Here is the dark irony. If you react with anger, you complete their performance for them. You give the audience what the comedian promised them, a reaction, a spectacle, an emotional response that confirms your vulnerability. The angrier you get, the funnier the moment becomes, for everyone who is not you. You have just become a supporting actor in someone else's show. The psychological solution is deadpan non-reaction. Not anger, not a witty comeback, not visible discomfort. You respond, if at all, with a calm, almost bored expression. A slight smile that suggests you found the moment mildly entertaining but entirely beneath you. And then you return to your conversation as if absolutely nothing happened. The comedian is left standing on a stage with no audience. Their performance has no landing, no punchline, no reaction to feed off. The silence you give them is not empty. It is loaded, with contempt so controlled it becomes the most powerful statement in the room. Robert Greene. Make your enemies expend energy on you while you save yours for things that matter. This is the deepest wound in the hierarchy of human pain. Not the stranger who wrongs you, the person you let in. The one who held your confidence, your vulnerability, your trust, and they used it. Maybe they shared what you told them in private. Maybe they chose their advantage over your loyalty. Maybe they simply revealed, at the worst possible moment, that they were never who you believed them to be. The emotional devastation of betrayal is total. Grief, fury, humiliation, and a desperate urge to make them feel what they've caused. You want them to face you. You want them to explain. You want to confront them with the full weight of what they did, loudly, completely, with every detail laid bare. You want them to suffer the way you are suffering. But the confrontation, as satisfying as it feels in your imagination, rarely delivers what you need. Because the person who betrayed you has already made their calculation. They made it before they acted. They have prepared for your response. Your rage is not new information to them. It is the expected outcome. And they have already decided how to manage it, deflect it, reframe it. Worse, the emotional confrontation reopens you to them. It puts them back inside your psychological space, back at the center of your energy and attention, which is precisely where someone who already took from you should never be allowed to return. The most powerful response to betrayal is also the most devastating one you can inflict. Silent removal. No confrontation, no dramatic speech, no final message. You simply cease. You withdraw your presence, your energy, your investment, completely, permanently, without explanation. Because the person who betrayed you was counting on still mattering to you. They expected the confrontation, because even your rage is a form of attention. Even your anger is proof they still have access to you. The silence tells them something far more final. You have been reclassified, not as an enemy worthy of war, as someone who no longer exists in your strategic world. Machiavelli understood the terminal power of this move. True punishment is not revenge, it is irrelevance. 7 tactics, 7 situations, one unbreakable, timeless principle woven through every single one of them. The person who controls their reaction controls the room. There are 2 types of people you will encounter in this life. The first type is the reactor. They are moved by everything, provoked by everything. Their emotions are public, advertised on their face, amplified in their voice, broadcast through their every choice of response. The reactor is readable, and what is readable is controllable. The second type is the strategist. The strategist feels everything the reactor feels. They are not cold, they are not hollow, but they have learned the most difficult and the most powerful skill available to a human being: the ability to feel the fire and choose not to become it. Dead silence is not emptiness. It is the sound of complete psychological authority. It is the language spoken by every general who ever won without drawing a sword. Every negotiator who let the other side talk themselves into submission. every leader who made the room lean in by simply refusing to perform for it. Your silence is not absence. It is presence at its most concentrated. The world will attempt to provoke you, to destabilize you, to pull your reactions out like weapons to use against you. Your greatest power is the ability to look that world in the eye and give it nothing. Not because you have nothing to give, but because you have decided what is worth your energy and what simply is not. That is not passivity, that is mastery. Before you go, I want you to do one thing. Scroll down to the comments right now and type this. My silence is not weakness, it is my weapon. Post it, mean it. Let it become the declaration that rewires how you move through every room from this day forward. If this video gave you even one tactic that shifts how you handle disrespect, hit the like button right now. Not for me. Do it as a signal to yourself that you are choosing a different way of operating. Every like is a commitment, and committed people move differently. Now think for a moment. Is there someone in your life who lets their emotions work against them? Someone who keeps losing the psychological battle because they can't resist taking the bait? Send them this video. Not with a message, not with a lecture. Just send it. Let the silence of the gesture speak for itself. That's already tactic number 1 in action. And if you are new here, welcome to Machiavellian Discipline. This channel exists for one purpose, to give you the psychological framework to navigate a world that rewards the composed and punishes the reactive. Every week we go deeper into power dynamics, into dark psychology, into the strategies that history's most formidable minds use to protect themselves and dominate their environment. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next video you miss might be the one that changes everything. The strategist is always prepared. Are you?